right, we will go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to our July Missouri Open Door series. Today we are going to be talking about technology for neurodiverse needs. My name is Angelina Alpert. I am a senior program area specialist at the University of Missouri, Kansas City Institute for Human Development. Um, and we are joined today with Missouri Assistive Technology. So to start us off, I'm going to do a quick overview of Missouri No Wrong Door for those of you not familiar. We're going to learn about technology supports for neurodiverse needs, and then we are going to go through an integrated supports split star. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, these get recorded and posted to our Charting the Life course YouTube. They also do get sent out in a follow-up email afterwards. If you have any questions or comments throughout the presentation, feel free to add those in the Q&A or in the chat section, and we will get to those at the end of the presentation. So a little bit about No Wrong Door. It aims to transform the way people access services in the community, and it does that by supporting individuals and caregivers to make decisions on complete and accurate information about their options for anybody seeking long-term services and supports, regardless of age, income, or disability. The way that we do that is through collaboration with Missouri No Wrong Door partners. Government agencies and organizations throughout the state. One of them being Missouri Assistive Technology. And I mentioned on our last Open Door series that the state of Missouri did actually just get another round of funding for No Wrong Door. So we will be able to continue our efforts around this. And Department of Health and Senior Services is taking the lead on that. And we will continue to collaborate with all of our partners and hopefully see some big changes in the way supports are provided in the state. So a little bit about the series. Our goal of these is to open doors to integrated supports. What you see here is our integrated support star, which I will talk more in depth about later on. But the goal with this is to show the 5 different types of services and supports. And this is what we base our Open Door series off of. So this one is the technology series. And then we also have a benefit series in which we talk about eligibility specific services, which are going to be needs-based, whether it's on income, geography, employment status, some form of disability diagnosis. And then the other types of services and supports are personal strengths and assets, relationships, and community-based services. So our goal with the integrated support star is to integrate services into our support systems. So in the first set of circles all the way to the left, you'll see that every person exists within the context of their family and community. Typically, people can tend to rely on formal paid government services and supports, and those can unintentionally seclude a person from the family and the community that they want to be a part of. So our goal is for people to use all different types of services and supports and integrate them throughout their life. That way they're able to take part in the family and the community that they would like to be a part of. With that, I will go ahead and pass it over to Missouri Assistive Technology.
All right. Well, thank you, Angelina, and good afternoon, friends. We are looking forward to talking through technology supports for neurodiverse learners. We'll share some tools to support their strengths, reduce barriers, and to foster independence. You know, probably in hindsight, as Scout and I were putting this presentation together, this is a huge topic, and so we probably won't be able to go as in-depth probably as we thought maybe when we put put this on the agenda for this year, but we'll certainly give you some basic understanding of some of the technology that's out there for individuals who have neurodiversity. And so if we move to the next slide, I will say that Scout and I will kind of be sharing this presentation. I have a few areas of assistive technology I'll be touching on, and then Scout has a few areas that he will be touching on as well. So we'll be doing a little bit of a ping pong presentation here today. When I started to put this presentation together, I kind of had to stop a little bit and think this through because, honestly, this term neurodivergence or neurodiversity is relatively new, and I think it maybe kind of snuck up on some of us who've been in the field of assistive technology and disabilities for a number of years. And so I just kind of want to start by having sort of a common definition of what we talk about when we're talking about neurodivergence. So really what it refers to is just the natural variations in how people think, how they learn, and how they process information. And so it includes under this umbrella of what's included, what conditions are included under this definition of neurodivergence include things like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, sensory processing disorders, and several other types of conditions. And so, there are different lenses that we use to view things. And so, instead of maybe viewing some of these conditions as deficits or disorders, there are some strengths in some of the conditions that people who have neurodivergence experience. So, we kind of know that most people that have neurodivergence sort of have a unique cognitive profile. And so some of their strengths might be in visual thinking or pattern recognition or their ability to focus. But some of this also produces some challenges, and these challenges are in areas such as executive function or sensory integration and or communication. Overall, when it comes to folks with neurodivergence, these are traits that are just part of the broad spectrum of human diversity that's out there. But there are some unique challenges that hopefully assistive technology might be a potential solution to help address so people can maximize their ability to do what it is that they want. If we move on to the next slide, we will just do a quick reminder on assistive technology itself, since that is sort of the core feature of this particular Missouri Open Door series. And we'll, as I'm sure pretty much everybody who's attended these presentations before knows, that when we talk about assistive technology, we're talking about those tools, those pieces of technology, those devices that can help an individual with an identified disability or perhaps an age-related disability be able to overcome whatever functional barrier they may encounter, or in another way to think about it is they're, through these tools and the use of these tools, they're better able to access the world around them. And as a reminder, assistive technology, there's a myth that we're trying to push out of people's thinking, and that is that technology is always high tech, but there are low tech solutions, mid tech solutions, and then high tech solutions. And when we explore technology for folks with disabilities, we want to make sure that we are matching them up to the features that they need. And if we can find those features in a low tech device, everybody is probably going to have more success. And I think that's one of the things you will see over the course of this presentation is that we have a variety of devices that are sort of on the spectrum from low, mid, to high tech. Overall, I think we always need to keep in mind what is the purpose of assistive technology. And the purpose is a series of action verbs. So, these devices, if properly matched with an individual, will help provide individuals with independence. They can reduce stress, cognitive overload. They support inclusion. They open opportunities. Assistive technology is always about more than the devices. It's about the outcomes that that person wants to be able to achieve in their life. So if we move on to the next slide, we will start kind of digging into some of the assistive technology, and we will start with some supports for executive function. Executive function, I think, is a fascinating area. Every time I read more about executive function, I become a little more fascinated. It's sort of an endless cycle I've discovered over the years. I think generally all of us have some executive function areas that technology can certainly make our lives easier to address some of the things that we know about executive function. So for the population we're talking about today, some of the challenges that fall under this umbrella of executive function include things like their ability to initiate tasks or to manage time or overall organization or working memory. So what we have up on the screen here are just a few examples. I guess we have about 6 examples here of some of the types of devices. And we're going to kind of talk sort of more in categories than specific devices today. But so some of the areas of devices that are very useful for folks that might experience some of these challenges that fall under the definition of executive function. So we'll start over on the left-hand side at the top. You'll see there's one that's labeled ChoiceWorks. And ChoiceWorks is an example of a visual schedule. So what do visual schedules do? They show a sequence of tasks or events, and they use images, or they use icons, or they use text to help somebody be able to understand what it is that they're supposed to do and perhaps what is the order that they are supposed to do. And this is a very simple app. ChoiceWorks is. It's been around for a long time. There are dozens and dozens of these types of apps that are out there that again, they include images or icons or text. Some of them you can put video in and actual pictures in one thing and another. So lots of different ways that they can be customized. So why are visual schedules helpful for individuals who have neurodivergence? They're helpful because they help with predictability. They help with clear expectations as to what's supposed to happen in a situation or across the course of a day. And so as a result of these clear expectations, the predictability, the use of these tools, hopefully we're reducing any anxiety, we're increasing independence, and we're just improving the ability of an individual to transition from various tasks or into various stages of their day. If we move over along the top row again, Todoist and Notability are examples of 2 of the many task management apps that are out there. And what task management apps do, they're more than just apps. Sometimes they can be software on our computers or websites that we log into, but a lot of in this day and age, a lot of things are apps. And so what they do is they help an individual be able to organize tasks, to set priorities, to break tasks into steps, and to track their progress. So Todoist is an example. It's probably a little more advanced one, but there are all sorts of ways that I can do what I just mentioned in terms of breaking tasks into steps, setting my priorities, tracking my progress, simply by logging into this interface or interacting with it as an app on an iPad or my phone or whatever. Notability is another example of a task management app. It's a longtime favorite of mine. It can combine written text, typed text. I can take pictures and insert it in there. I can do audio recording. So I have a number of tools in there that, again, are going to help me be able to set priorities, collect information, et cetera, et cetera. So again, 2 examples of the many task management apps that are out there. So for folks that struggle with executive function, that have neurodiversity, these are very good for helping them stay organized, to complete tasks, to offer structure, and prevent overwhelm, and some of these things that maybe are conditions that folks may experience, and we can reduce those through the use of these task management apps. If we start moving along the bottom screen there, time timer and the voice assistants, those would be some examples of digital reminders and timers. Time Timer is a fascinating device. It's been around in the world of assistive technology for years and years and years. There's probably about 20 different versions of this very simple concept. Essentially what it does is it helps somebody who has what I've heard referred to as time blindness be able to visualize time. And you'll see that with the use of the red as you set a period of time, and the color changes as you're counting down from, say, 60 minutes to 0, which might be tied to the completion of a task. So these, and then looking at the voice assistants there, it is, we have lots of great off-the-shelf technology in this day and age. And again, things like voice reminders, the voice assistants can be used to help us be able to do some of the time management, to be reminded of things we have to do, et cetera, et cetera. So these tools, overall, they just kind of help by providing external cues to help somebody stay on schedule, to start an activity, to stop an activity, and even when to take breaks if they have a tendency to need to be reminded of that type of thing. And then just another item that I have here on the screen, which is the LiveScribe pen. I should have probably talked about that when I talked about Notability. And it is a multimodal tool where I can record audio, I can write traditional with a pen. And so what it's doing is recording the audio as I write. And so it's combining two things there. And the idea is to help folks be able to capture information, to store it, to be able to retrieve it when they want. And these are certainly important supports that we see benefiting folks with various kinds of neurodivergent conditions. So if we move on to the next slide, we will be looking at some communication devices. And I know we've had a couple of sessions just on AAC devices and apps, so we're not going to spend a lot of time digging down into these. But just as a quick reminder, since I'm going to assume that a lot of folks here on our call today have some familiarity or have been on some of the other presentations where we've talked more in depth about augmentative and alternative communication devices and apps. The purpose of these is to provide an alternative way to communicate, either using symbols or text or voice output as examples of some of the ways that folks can use these to communicate. And so they're helpful for those individuals who are non-speaking, who are minimally speaking, who have unreliable speech, and they provide a tool then for them to be able to express their needs, their thoughts, their emotions, and that increases autonomy, reduces frustration, and several other things, positive things come out of the use of AAC devices. If we move to the bottom of the left-hand side there, where we have some examples of text-to-speech and speech-to-text, this has been a technology that has seen some really good evolution over the years. And a lot of different ways that we can use this. In their simplest sense, text-to-speech tools convert written text into spoken words. So maybe I type something, I struggle with reading it, I can have it read to me so that I can understand it better. And so Voice Dream over there is one example of a text-to-speech tool that's out there that's readily available. We're starting to see these built into our operating systems, Microsoft's operating system, the Apple operating system, et cetera, et cetera. Very valuable. And the reason they're valuable and beneficial to people in particular that have ADHD, who have dyslexia or visual processing disorders, is that those individuals more often than not are going to struggle with the reading process. So hearing text out loud can improve their comprehension, their focus, and just generally their accessibility to written materials. And we have lots of written materials in this world. So shifting over now to speech to text, which is the inverse of text to speech, where we are speaking and it shows up as text. So with speech to text, like I said, we're converting spoken words into written text. And so for individuals who have dysgraphia or fine motor issues or language processing differences, they may struggle with writing overall. And so these tools allow the users to capture their thoughts more efficiently, reduce the cognitive load that comes with the writing process, and several other very beneficial things that just make these tools to help somebody be able to accomplish something. And then the last sort of area of communication supports I want to talk about quickly are the visual supports. And so visual supports, like we have the young man who's indicating what he wants to do on the playground using the visual support that's attached to the fence on the playground. These visual supports are going to use images and symbols and diagrams to support understanding and expression, which is exactly what's going on with the picture of the young man up there. And so many individuals who have neurodivergence are visual learners. And so the use of visuals can clarify language, it can reinforce routines, it can support comprehension, especially of abstract concepts, and then subsequently hope to reduce anxiety or miscommunication or unfamiliar situations. So, three kind of areas of communication supports for folks that have various kinds of neurodiverse conditions, AAC devices and apps, text to speech, speech to text, and then visual support. So just a couple of ideas that will hopefully kind of stick and help folks understand how you might use technology in these two areas. And now I will turn it over to Scout to talk about some devices for sensory regulation.
All right. Thanks, David. Thanks everyone for being here. I just want to say with the visual supports at the playground, I think that's so cool. And the visual supports, to me, I think some parents get into this thing of like, if I have these supports, my child won't speak. But a lot of times the visual supports really encourage and enhance learning of language. You can do a lot of modeling. Anyway, I think they're very cool. But I'm here to talk about sensory regulation tools. So it is not uncommon for people with neurodiverse needs to have some sensory regulation difficulties or limitations. And so having just a variety of things that you can, of course, match to somebody's needs. So I'll talk about the things that I have on the screen. The first image in the top left are just 3D printed fidgets. And I like the 3D printed ones just because you can really choose the support that you like, print it out and try it. And it is, just a few cents to actually print that out. And I will say we've had a few interns over the summer, and I asked them to pull down some files or some images of supports they might want to print. So I've been printing some different fidgets, and one of them is called an ouchie, and it's really quite a prickly tube. And we have an intern that really finds that one like the draw. And I was showing some other people, and it is such a strong reaction of like I like it or I hate it. But so there's all kinds. There's ones that move, ones that you just hold and have that sensory input, all kinds of fidgets that can be 3D printed. And then, of course, there's myriad of those that you purchase, bubble ones and things like that. Below that, there's an image of a girl walking on a balance beam, and I find this particular sensory input very intriguing. I did a quick search of sensory input through the feet, and so some of the benefits of this are enhanced balance, increased brain activity, and this is all with bare feet, basically. Increased brain activity, improved posture, but also, taking in that sensory input through your feet can boost spatial awareness as well as promote body awareness. So I know that can be really helpful. And I think these like large area sensory input again can be very calming. So with that, moving on to the weighted weighted things, which is the next image. There's a couple of boys there with some weighted vests. There's weighted lap blankets. There's weighted whole blankets. Um, you can get, we have a weighted lion, so it's just a kind of a fun toy you can put on your lap, but it provides that kind of sensory input. Um, so I think, a lot of the bigger wearing devices, I think people have to kind of make sure that it's supporting the child and not um, limiting them, of course. The little lap pads or blankets or toys, they're easier for a child to choose when they need it. Um, but just they can provide that sense of safety and security with that extra weight. Um, so the next image, and this is a stool with an adjustable height, and it has some movement available in this. Um, I will say I did choose this because for a good while here, I had made myself one of these and was using it, but because it was a DIY, it did actually break, and that was a little less than fun that day. But one that's built and is built for an adult weight, which this one is, can be really helpful. It can increase focus. Um, and that's what we're trying to do for kids in school or adults at work or, any place, is just be able to provide those supports, like David said, that really address a limitation. So if focus is a limitation, a stool like that, and there's lots of seating options, especially geared around for children's supports. There are some really cool seats out there. It might be something as simple as a beanbag. They now have these it's like a roller coaster seat. It's all just a small thing, but you just spin around and go all different directions. So you are constantly kind of readjusting your body. I tried this for the first time. It was quite the experience. Not exactly made for a full-grown person, though. Um, there are noise canceling headphones. Somebody in the chat is saying that they recommend loop earplugs. It is something, the earplugs would be something a little bit more discreet. They sound almost like like the AirPod type of in the ear, whereas the ones I have on the screen are clearly over the ear, um, going to be very apparent that you're wearing those. The thing I kind of like is that they're becoming more common. More and more people are putting, especially their children, in these noise canceling type of headphones, at any kind of loud venue, which is great. All right. Somebody says they have this adult wobble chair and it's very comfortable. We may have to speak. Um, then the only other image I have on the screen is a light tray. So this is something that it lights up from the bottom and you put things on top, and you can use it for lots of different areas. It can just be a sensory activity, it could be a learning activity, but a lot of kids respond really well to a light table. Oh, we've got, okay. Yeah, other people are saying they use the loops and they're really great. So that is news we can use. All right. I think we can move on to the next slide, which I'll hand back to David for this one.
All right. Thank you, Scout. And so we have a couple of slides here in a row that are going to be reading and writing supports, and I'm going to kind of focus in on some of the more mid to higher tech options that are out there. Scout's going to focus in a little bit more on the lower tech options. So we're looking, if you're looking at the screen, on the left-hand side, we have some examples of some reading tools, and on the right-hand side, we have some examples of some of the writing supports that are out there. And so, these are super valuable tools. So starting with the reading tools, the first two on the top, Read and Write and Kurzweil 3000, are both examples of software programs, or they can also be apps if you're using Chromebooks or tablet devices. And then the two below, Bookshare and Learning Ally, are sources in which individuals can access reading materials in accessible formats, depending. If it's a print text, it can be available in a digital format. If they need it in large print, that's available as well. And so these are overall, all the reading and writing supports are great for those folks that have dyslexia or dysgraphia or motor fatigue. What the reading supports have are a lot of times they have a suite of options that are available. Again, the idea being to customize it so that the individual who's using it can get the right features to help them be able to, as independently as possible, read. So these might include things like text to speech, which we've already talked about a little bit, or highlighting, or the ability to adjust the fonts or maybe the background colors. And these features can be really critical in helping folks that have various types of conditions be able to see and understand text, and comprehend it. So overall, what they do, especially again, folks that have dyslexia or dysgraphia, or ADHD or visual processing disorders, again, they kind of tend to struggle a little bit more with reading, fluency and comprehension. And so these reading tools can help them improve their focus, make text overall more accessible, and then increase understanding. A lot of reading is really about comprehending, not so much about the physical act of following text on a page, as much as comprehending what that text is conveying to the individual. On the right-hand side, again, these are some examples of writing supports. Co-Writer, which is a word prediction software. Grammarly, which I think probably some people are using, which is designed to help increase somebody or improve somebody's grammar and just overall writing. Unfortunately, I just learned in the last 24 hours that Snap and Read may not be available anymore, so we'll not have a discussion about that. And then that final image, that's the face that kind of has the crooked smile on it. That is a software program called Got It, which I think is kind of underknown in the state of Missouri. But what these writing supports do, they include things like grammar checkers, outlining aids, and visual tools to help organize the writing process. And they're helpful for folks that have neurodivergence because of the fact that these individuals might have difficulty organizing their thoughts, staying on topic, or just kind of remembering what the grammar rules are in general. And so by the use of these tools, it kind of provides a structure to help them be able to write. It helps reduce the cognitive load that sometimes goes into the writing process, and just kind of overall is making writing easier and more manageable for them. So again, they can focus on getting content out as opposed to struggling with the process of writing in general. So we move on to the next slide, and Scout will look at some lower tech options that are out there.
Yeah, thank you. Before I do, again, an additional comment. So we've got some comments in the chat about the Loop noise canceling earplugs. If anybody on this call has over the ear noise canceling headphones that they like, please put them in the chat. We are kind of looking at those right now, and if we've got an audience with users, we would love to get your feedback. All right, because the in-ear ones are hard to put in a lending library. Maybe that makes sense to everyone. So I'm gonna talk now about some lower tech reading and writing supports. And I can't talk about this without talking about the visual tracking magnifier, which is the first image in the top left. It is a short bar magnifier, probably about 6 inches long, that has gray areas on the top and bottom, clear in the middle, with that heavy line that it goes under the line of text that you are reading. So it has very little magnification, but it really makes that line of text stand out. And so it's just a really great low-tech tool that can go in a pocket, in a pack, and just be there as needed. For an even lower tech support for reading is what is called a typoscope. This is just a thin piece of plastic with a cutout that you would run over the line. All it does is kind of hide that text above and below and give you something easy to run up and down a page or, whatever you're working on. Honestly, this one can be made out of a cereal box. There is nothing that is particularly special about this except it will last a long time because it's plastic. It can be 3D printed. Like I said, it can be made out of a cereal box. It is just a way to block that text above and below the line that you're actively reading. The next support I have for reading is just these highlighting strips. So these again have the gray on the top and bottom, and then they provide a highlighting strip in the middle that can come in various colors. So with these various colors, somebody might choose something that meets their visual needs. They might think the blue is too bright, or the orange strip is too dark. So finding that kind of happy spot that works for that individual can be really helpful. There are other ones that go on a finger, and so you just move your hand along and read kind of like a word or two or three at a time with this little finger support. There's all kinds of lower tech options for reading. And so then if we move over to the writing side, the top right corner just has some egg-shaped pencil grips. So probably most of us are pretty familiar with the variety of pencil grips that are out there. But really, having that, having a grab bag, if you will, of writing grips can be really beneficial because they not only can help finger placement, some of them have grooves for your fingers, help that reception that you're actually holding a device, or even providing a fidget on your pencil. So there's lots of different ways that these can be supportive, and different grips are going to help different kids. The universal cuffs are another writing support. So I've got a couple images of some different cuffs. The pink one there that's going around the fingers. I don't even remember, that one might be 3D printed. There are some 3D prints you can do with universal cuffs. There are hard plastic. There are Velcro tightening cuffs you can put on. There's an image of a paintbrush, and that one has an easy hold, which is a silicone device that just slides onto a marker or a pencil or hairbrush or whatever it is, and that you put your hand in there, use it like a cuff, and then you can use that as a grip aid for whatever device you're putting in there. Let's go over to the bottom right, which is just a weighted, or it's a hand weight, basically. So again, this just kind of brings that attention to the hand, might help stabilize, but there's a couple of different varieties of those hand weights that might be really helpful for somebody struggling with writing. And then the kind of the most complex of the low tech that I have on here for writing support is called guided hands. Um, and this is just a device that moves on XY axis. So uh, there are the metal rods on the around the device, and that your hand can move along two axes to do things like write, paint, even hold a stylus and access a tablet. But those can be helpful. There are different um, uh, hand supports that can pop on and off. So I think maybe the one pictured is a ball support, but you could also have the U. It's shaped like a goalpost that your hand would rest in. So there's a couple of variations in this device to hold your hand to make it be the most functional for the user. So those are just a few of the things that are out there for some lower tech reading and writing supports. Thinking. Oh, all right, this one's mine too. So we're going to move on to anxiety and emotional regulation. Um, so I really tried to get a couple of variations of things in here, some geared for younger users, some for older users, because I think it is some of us don't really grow out of that need for emotional regulation, and sometimes it really is just a quick like, all right, remind myself to breathe, right? You know, count to 5 before I respond. Whatever it is for just kind of checking ourselves in, especially in stressful situations. Um, so there is an app that is more for adults, that's How We Feel, and this is a way to kind of log and check in about the ways in which we are feeling. So like I said, that one is geared towards adults, but can be really helpful if you want to kind of work on learning more, right? Um, so then I've got a couple of feeling thermometers. One is really simple. The top one just is a 1 to 5, 1 being happy, moving on to sad, worried, frustrated, and the top in red is angry. Um, but using that as like a visual way to say, okay, where am I right now, and how do I get back down into that green spot? And then below, there is another feelings thermometer that I know it's super small, but what it has are it names a lot of feelings that are related, and then it has some what can I do to what are good activities to do, or what can I do to help me maybe move out of this feeling, or something like that. So it really is kind of the almost the to-do list of feelings, but it has a lot more vocabulary, so it really can be used by an older crowd. But it's good to kind of identify those. And the ones I probably like even more than the feeling thermometers are these, how big is my problem? Right? I think this is so great to kind of have this way of looking at, um, something feels huge in a moment. I think we all kind of can get this, where we're like, oh my gosh, the world is falling apart. Um, but when you stop and think, how big is my problem? These really help put things into perspective. So the top one is from a website called Teachers Paying Teachers. So it is a support you would purchase. Um, the bottom one, a lot of these are just available. You can just do a quick internet search for how big is my problem, and a lot of these will pop up. Is it an emergency? Is it something that's aggravating? or is it really just a glitch? You know, did something just pop up and you just need to move past it because it was just literally just a glitch, you know? Um, uh, and not let it become a bigger problem when you can identify that. So I really like those. And then sometimes we just need a way to relieve our stress, like getting an app where you break stuff. I I think this, you know, again, finding those ways to calm and recenter or refocus, whether it is a breathing app or a glass smasher app, you know, really finding what works. It might be a game where you you know, draw your lines, and but just finding those ways to help center. There's so many things out there, especially when we're looking at apps. Um, to really help bring that focus back, to calm down, reduce those higher stress levels. So, and if anybody has anything else they want to throw in the chat, of course, there's just hundreds of things, but if there's something that you really like, feel free to just throw it in the chat. All right.
All right, Scout, I believe that this is now my slide. I like that quizzical look you had on your face, like I do not recognize this slide. Where did this come from? That would be one of mine. So just a brief reminder that when it comes to assistive technology, personalization of the device matters. We should not have assistive technology be a cookie cutter approach. So some of the tools that we saw today may be appropriate for somebody you're working with, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be appropriate for everybody you're working with who has the title of neurodivergent. So we always want to make sure that we match the tool to the person. What are their needs? What are their preferences? What's their sensory profile in this particular situation? We want to make sure that the individual themselves is involved in the selection and the customization of that device. We do not want to be in a position where we are picking the device that that individual is going to utilize. They have a voice, they need to contribute, they're going to be the user. We want to make sure that it meets their selection criteria. Devices may be appropriate in all environments. They may be appropriate in just one or two environments. It kind of depends on the nature of where the person is encountering the barrier and what they need to do and the situation they find themselves in. So if it's school, home, or work, we might have to look at each one of those environments a little bit differently to match up the most appropriate tool in that environment to help somebody be successful. And I say this over and over again in the world of assistive technology, trial and error. We kind of start with a best guess what's going to work with somebody, but we might have to adjust upward or downward on the AT spectrum or back up and start again. So we always have to, it's best to do device trials and learn about the device and about how successful that device is. And we also need to maintain flexibility in how we approach these things. We're not probably going to get it right the first time out of the box. We have to stay flexible and keep problem solving and come up in conjunction with the individual we're working with the device that's going to be most appropriate for them. So just a couple of reminders there about how to best approach the world of assistive technology with the folks you're working with. Angelina, I believe I'll hand it over to you, and you are planning on taking us out for the rest of the session.
Yeah, so I see another question that just came through in the chat. Yes, you will get the link to the recording as well as a PDF of the slides at the end of this. As long as you have registered, you've added to our listserv, so you will get that afterwards. We did switch the order of our presentation a little bit today, so we're ending with the tool instead. But I just wanted to quickly walk you guys through a integrated supports split star. So this comes from Charting the Life course. If you're unfamiliar with it, Charting the Life course is a framework and set of tools that helps you think differently about your vision for a good life, setting high expectations, and integrating multiple types of supports. And it helps you organize your ideas, visions, and goals, as well as problem solve, navigate, and advocate for supports. So this is our split star. These are the same categories that I went over in the beginning. So your personal strengths and assets, the things that you own, the personality traits that you have, your characteristics, things that you have that can help yourself. Your relationships are going to be your friends, families, acquaintances, anybody that's able to give you a hand. Eligibility specific, I talked about earlier. Those are going to be the ones where you have to meet eligibility criteria. Community based are going to be things that are open to anybody, that anybody would have access to out in the community. And then technology. So this is an example of somebody who's neurodiverse transitioning from high school to college, in which we wanted to use the split star where you're able to think about the supports that you have in each area right now, and then also plan for things that you'll need in the future. So going from high school to college, things will look a little bit differently. So planning for those different supports that you're going to need. So now they have a summer job and they have good connections with that summer job and they're able to keep up with their responsibilities at home. And for the school year starting, they're going to need a new job, something that they're able to manage with their schoolwork. They're good at making friends, and they are responsible. For their relationships, they're going to stay about the same for now and going to school. They've got their parents and their siblings to support them. They have really good coworkers that have helped them kind of grow through their summer job. Friends, they're friends from high school, but then also having that ability to make friends there. And they're really comfortable with their connection with their teachers and asking for help if they need that help. In high school, they had an IEP, and then going to college, they'll be able to connect with disability services, and see what accessibility options they have. They have a tutor that they use in high school, and access to the library, and then they're also parts of after school groups. And then when going to college, they'll be able to have access to a career center and career fairs, helping them find that job that'll be a good balance for them. We'll still have access to a library. Um, they're okay with print with material on the computer, but sometimes need printed material, so they'll have access to the printers in the library, and clubs and tutors there as well. As far as technology, they have noise control headphones now, but are looking for something that is a little bit more discreet, which I already had loop earplugs on there, so I'm glad somebody mentioned those. And I actually do have mine on me, so I'll show them. They're in this like incredibly tiny case and they have a little loop on them, so I keep them right on my keys. And they are like super tiny. They go like lay flat in your ear, so you have no idea that they're in. And they have different levels of noise cancellation, if you want full cancellation or just kind of like muffle noises. um there were fidgets as well that they like to use in high school that are discreet enough that they'll be able to bring them to class with them in college. um they knew that the a version of how big is my problem worked for them to kind of keep them calm when something came up, and make sure that they can assess it on their own. So they'll continue to use that. Um, have their laptop with Notability so they're able to record their lectures and take their notes at the same time. Um, they use Alexa for reminders, and their scheduling, and then a visual tracking magnifier for when they're using printed materials. And with that, if anybody has any questions or reflections they either want to put in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand, I can go ahead and unmute you. I'll give that a second. Somebody saying they'd forget so many things without Alexa. Yes. All right, while we see if anything else comes in, I'll go ahead and move forward to our schedule for the rest of the year. Our benefit series are on the second Wednesday of every month from 12:30 to 1:30. Our next one's August 13th, and that'll be about adult protective services and what kind of things they offer. And then our technology series is the fourth Wednesday of every month from 12:30 to 1:30. Next one there will be August 27th, shopping local for tech. And I will go ahead and drop these links in the chat really quickly.
So, Angelina, this is David. I'm gonna chime in here real quick. I was just scrolling through the chat and I feel like we all must be friends or something like that because I appreciated the open sharing of people referencing their wobble chair or their noise blocking headphones and things like that. So thank you very much for sharing. That was great. We appreciate it.
I was just gonna say the same thing. It takes everyone. So thank you for being part of our community here and attending these, but also sharing your knowledge.
And then to end, we just have everybody's contact information. So if you have any additional questions or need to reach out to any of us, that is there. But we thank you all for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time. And thank you, David and Scout.